Spieler says, Hurling Punditry Prediction Award. This is for our awards, which we might as well just start now because we've been teeing ourselves up for it for a while. It's not one that we have here, but Hurling Punditry Prediction Award. Mark Foley on TG Carr halftime of the league semi-final, tipped 4 points up and seemingly coasting. Foley deadpan says Limerick will win the game, and they did. Tony Romo-esque. Who's Tony Romo, Bernie?
Tony Romo is an NFL legend, is he?
Yeah. Who did he play for?
No, you have me there.
No, he's a Dallas Cowboys, but he's a brilliant commentator who's like, as they're about to line up for a play, he'll tell you, oh, they're lining up to do this, and that's the reason. He just calls things brilliantly live in the moment. It's absolutely class. PWL74 says, teams playing weakened teams during the league is serving no purpose at all. Nothing is learnt about new players if they're playing against weak opponents. Waste of time award. League closely followed by Sunday Game Punditry. Wow, going in hard. Traum Spieler, best punditry podcast, OurGame amazing throughout the year, lads. Appreciate that from Traum Spieler. Conor Heaney, so if you have a few injuries in the league, your opposition will have an advantage against you in the championship too. But look, that happens. Like, you have injuries at any time of the year. Fair point, Conor. But look, I still think fair enough would be something worth looking at. Right, will we get into these different areas? You might start us off there.
We better not delay it too long or we'll be here all day.
Yeah, true, isn't it?
Goal of the year. What's immediately coming to my mind? Like Cathal Mannion's goal against Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final. It was that good that Nicky Quaid didn't even see it. That would definitely be one that springs to mind. Shane O'Donnell's for Clare against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final was an absolute bullet, a peach. Anything else coming to your head here?
Do you know, you've kind of stolen my thunder there with the Shane O'Donnell one, because it was just like it exploded into the back of the net. It was just so good. I mean, you look at the other teams that scored heavily goals throughout the year. Clare did at different times. I'm trying to think, did Tipperary get, did Jake Morris get one of his usual ones solo and through and the one-handed sort of bat into the net? What was your favourite Limerick goal of the year? And just looking at the run that they had through Munster, they scored 6 championship goals. And there's nothing like, I mean, I think the time against Galway, actually, that the ball was won out around midfield and it was flicked in, and it was a great catch from Aaron Gillane over. Did he catch it over Dahi Burke?
Yeah.
He moved back into the full back line and just smacked it into the net really nicely. Adrian McGrath says Mark Rogers against Tip. Conor Heaney says Hoggy against Limerick. And Hoggy scored one against Clare as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah. The one against Limerick was particularly tasty.
Yeah. Gillane's point in the All-Ireland final from the sideline, point of the year. What do you think?
That was a good one. He got one against Galway as well.
Barry National League final, that was a brilliant goal.
That was a brilliant goal, yeah. Brilliant team goal. It's funny, it's funny to probably team me up for what I think was the goal of the year, and that was Ballygunner's goal against Clonlara in the Munster final. Like, probably the best team goal we've seen in a hell of a lot of time. I think there was 10 plays involved, 10 stick passes involved. Kevin Matney put the ball into Desi. Desi waited a second and played it back to Mahoney on the 21 who made the sprint. He passed it off to Mikey Mahoney, wasn't it? And he finished it. Like, it was just, yeah, it was an absolutely beautiful goal. Kind of, it was a ball drop short, and it's the criminal thing. And it's probably worse in football than hurling, but it's not worse than a ball dropping short into the keeper's hands. You have no time to reset, and all of a sudden, I didn't count it, but what are you talking? Like, less than 20 seconds later, the ball is in the net at the other end. It's a killer. Whereas if the ball goes wide, that's why the coach or the manager always says to put it dead, because at least you have time to reset and regroup. But that's my goal of the year anyway.
I'd say it was probably the most scuffed goal of the year, but Killian Buckley's goal against Galway in the Leinster final is probably the most dramatic one.
Yeah, I'd have that down for a different category now. To me, that was the moment of the year. That was talk about high drama. The ball is knocking around the Hogan stand on the 21-yard line. Surely Galway are going to hold out. The ball is played across. It's kicked out. Killian Buckley, who's not long on the pitch, picks it up. Didn't connect that crisp edge, to be fair, but it ended up in the net, and it just, like, what an unlikely hero probably in that kind of instance. If he'd been scored the winning point, you would have said something, but for him to be the goal scoring hero, Mikey Butler's goal against Galway was class as well, actually, for like a cornerback to score with that type of coolness.
And they ran it through lines as well, it was a nice team play.
I'm going to stay firm with the Ballygunner goal, that Mikey Mahoney goal against Clonlara for my goal of the year. And what are you stumping for?
I think I'll go with Shane O'Donnell, just the way it exploded into the net. Adrian McGrath says either of the two he scored, Shane, but the one that caught over the two defenders bigger than him and the finish was special. Look, keep the comments coming in. Even if you don't come in straight away with us here, we'll get to your comments at some stage. Fergus Butler says goal of the year has to be Shane O'Donnell versus Kilkenny. Save of the year, which we're coming to next. I think this is an easy enough one. Niall Carty, the save of the year by Murphy against Clare was the moment of the year for me. Incredible. Anyone who's in the stadium will always remember. Like it was one of those, like, what the hell just happened there type moments.
I was, but and the ball came off Peter Duggan's hurl like a cannon, like the power in the shot, and like that's Murphy at his very best, like cat-like reflexes, ability to pull off these saves that very few others in the game could pull off. Remember the one from Conor McDonald last year as well in 2022. Like this is, I think that's the sort of save that to be talked about for decades and maybe even centuries to come. It'll be in every highlight reel for anything to do with, like, show me how good hurling is or show me how dramatic hurling can be. That save will be right there. So there's nothing even, it's that good as well that it's kind of standing over any other save. It's not allowing me to think of some other saves that were made. It was that good.
Wouldn't we be wasting people's time if we were trying to come for another save? By the way, not that it was a spectacular goal, but I should point out that Callan scoring his 40th championship ever goal. I know it was against Offaly and it was a fairly one-sided game, but that's worth mentioning as well while we talk about goals of the year. It should be
fair play to you for wangling in that now.
I have a few more tip things to come in here. I'm sure I can get them in for point of the year or something like that. So what is point of the year? By the way, I've seen as Podge Collins retired from intercounty action the other day. Couldn't help but think of that point where they moved it up through the lines. He soloed out. He was soloing towards the sideline, turned back, and then just flicked it up and popped it over the bar. Like, that was an unbelievable score. You know the one where he's kind of almost blindly hitting it over his shoulder from the sideline, and it goes over the bar. That was
against Cork in 13.
Cork in 13,
was it off the hurl, yeah?
It was off the hurl, yeah. He was turning, then threw it up and just blasted it.
Yeah, outrageous. That was an outrageous point. There are several good points. Remember Donald Burke's winning point against Wexford in Croke Park, that kind of trademark Donald Burke lean back that we kind of discussed with him on the show a couple of weeks ago. To me, though, because I couldn't believe he was even taking the shot on in the All-Ireland final, Peter Casey scores a point while basically, like, doing a tightrope of the sideline down the Hogan stand side with either Mikey Butler or Tommy Walsh, like, literally on top of him. And he put it up. I couldn't believe it, what I was watching. It was an absolutely outrageous point. In the biggest game of the year as well. Crazy point.
Yeah, Groat Hegarty had a few beauties from under the sideline, if I remember correctly, as well, didn't he?
He got 2 in the second half of the All-Ireland final.
Do you know what? I might be thinking of the year before.
I'd say you probably are, yeah. Because this was obviously probably a much quieter year for him. 2 good points in the second half, all right. Probably should have mentioned Paddy Deegan's goal in the All-Ireland final maybe as well. Again, beat Nicky. It was that good of a shot that he beat Nicky Quaid. And it was that good of a shot that it went out through the net, didn't it?
And actually, point of the year could possibly be Paddy Deegan's point against Ballyhale Shamrocks to win the county final. Fair enough, he took 10 steps, but still, what a point.
Yeah, definitely deserves.
Yeah, and Joe Butler has just come in with that, actually.
Do you know what? I nearly probably would give it to him, because then if you look at it, backed up what he did in the Leinster final as well with the 5. I'm still going to go for Peter Casey though. I just loved that score. Loved it.
Okay. Do you know what? Willie Connors' equalising point against Thurles the first day out in that county final was quite something. Like, surely people have got other points from across the country as well. I have to confess, I got in late from Porto last night. The brain is a little bit addled today. You might see that I'm struggling to come up with. I'm not as fresh as I normally would be on a Monday morning. So get your comments in and let us know. Too many steps, Joe says. River Power. He's talking to Joe Butler there. And do you know what? There's another comment here. Underrated player, Keane Lynch. People seem to forget he played in the first couple of round robin games and was unbelievable in the final. He really, really stepped up when it mattered in the final. Sure, look, aren't we always talking about it?
Yeah, no, I think it was just because in the semi-final he was probably quiet, and there was those lingering doubts about his fitness, and then he delivered, obviously, man of the match display in the final, and particularly when things weren't going well for Limerick, he was the one that was really keeping everything ticking over. Yeah, brilliant. As I say, you'll have to put nail your colours to the mast here. My point of the year is definitely Peter Casey's one against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final.
I give it to Paddy Deegan because how long are teams trying to beat Ballyhale Shamrocks, and it needed a moment like that. So I'd be happy enough to give it to him.
Yeah, that's a one. The next one is game of the year. Like the Munster final was hugely enjoyable. The Leinster final, which followed it, was a brilliant game. Real topsy-turvy. Was it Galway had outscored Kilkenny 1-8 to a point or something like that coming down the stretch before Buckley's goal? They were two really good games. Cork and Limerick in the round robin was an outstanding game.
Cork Clare was very dramatic.
Cork Clare was very dramatic as well. Tip and Cork was brilliant down in the park that Saturday night as well. Like, that was a brilliant game. Fairness to Cork, they were involved in like 3 absolute classics, and they laid waste to Waterford in their 4th game and still didn't get through.
Waterford against Limerick was very, very good.
Well, I tell you what it was probably surprising, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because you just probably weren't expecting it, maybe. But my game of the year is, and I'm glad I was at it. Usually it's a game you were at, because the Dicksboro Ballyhale quarter-final was outstanding. It was as good a club game as I've seen in a long, long time. And it even had the drama at the very, very end of it. Like, if Andy Gaffney scores this free, it's the last play of the game. Ballyhale are out, and that's the only way to beat them. And O'Loughlin's proved that, and Harry Ruddle proved that. That's the only way to beat them. But they held on that day. That'd be my game of the year. I thought that was an outstanding game. The Kenny County final was a very, very good game as well, high quality. But I'd put Dicksboro and Ballyhale Shamrocks this year in the quarter final up against any other club game that was played this year.
Aidan McGrath says Clare and Limerick in the Gaelic grounds has to be right up there. Dennis Noonan says Limerick versus Cork was game of the year, lads. Were you down at the Tip Cork game? You mentioned it there.
No, just watched it on the GA go. No, I didn't. Again, games are heightened if you're at them. I think you just have an even greater appreciation. It's kind of hard to believe what's going on when you're in the stadium and that. But no, I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah, Kilkenny Clare was very good in the All-Ireland semi-final. Did you find Offaly, Carlo, in the Joe McDonagh final to be right up there? That went to extra time and all.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant game. Elaine was overdue at that time, so I wasn't at that game. I was just watching it on the box. That was, to me now, that was, if Offaly had won, probably would have been maybe number one for me. Absolutely thrilling game from start to finish. Offaly started the better, got a man sent off, forced extra time, kind of thinking they're going to kick on in extra time, and just Chris Nolan, Mouse Cavan and the boys just found a bit extra. I remember a brilliant score from Dermot Byrne, actually, that we probably should have mentioned in the point of the year category. Got one from downtown. That was a brilliant game as well. So, like, it's only kind of when you go back through them, you see just how many good games there were.
Yeah, like Tip versus Limerick, as River Power said, that was very good. Remember John McGrath had that last minute free.
Yeah.
Or last moment free, I suppose, to get a draw.
Remember, like, the last, injury time in that game was absolutely bonkers. So Barry Nash got sent off. Liam Cattle got sent off, subsequently rescinded over that line ball. Like, some of those Munster round robin games this year, they were so tasty from start to finish. It's amazing to think what Limerick went on to do after. Like, they were hanging on in that game, hanging on against Cork. Then they go on and win the All-Ireland semi-final and final by 9 points against Leinster opposition, I might add, before you do.
To be fair to Limerick, like the condition that those players, and of course the people who are helping prepare them, but the commitment that those players must be putting in to get to that level and be able to endure season after season like this, you can only credit them. Now, we should mention that Westmeath beating Wexford was obviously unbelievably dramatic, and you were at it. But the following week, Wexford coming back, having lost to a team that everyone expected them to beat. They were 17 points ahead, 16 points, whatever it was. And then to go out and play against Kilkenny and to finish 423 to 518, a narrow victory there. To me, the drama on the line, everything is on the line for Wexford in terms of, relegation is a real possibility here with the way things are panning out. The entire county's on our backs. The whole country thinks we're a joke. And then to pull out that sort of result and that scoreline against Kilkenny, I would make that game of the year.
Well, I tell you what, because that was one of the most dramatic days of the year, definitely anyway. You had all the drama in Leinster. And you're looking across the 3 games, and it's the first time the 3 games have had real significance. So Antrim and Westmeath was going to decide who stayed up and who went down. Wexford against Kilkenny could have decided who went down as well, and also decide who's going to be in the Leinster final. And then you had Dublin and Galway playing at the same time. 1 minute Dublin are in Leinster final, next they're not. They look like they're coasting at one stage, then they're not. The wheels are coming off Galway's season all of a sudden, then they're not. And then, so that was the same day as Waterford beat Tipperary and maybe you could maybe say the wheels came off in Tipperary a bit. Limerick survived against Cork. Like, that was an absolutely crazy day.
Yeah. Who would be your underrated player of the year? And viewers, get your comments in. Let us know.
Underrated and most improved probably come across to the same lad.
Well, you came up with these categories.
Underrated player of the year, did I? I don't think. Yeah, maybe I did actually. Like, there was a stage in the All-Ireland final where it looked like Tom Phelan was going to be man of the match.
Well, then he's most improved player, and we have a comment in saying the very same thing.
Maybe so. Okay. Underrated. The funny thing about, like, there's very few players underrated anymore, is there? Because hurling is analysed so closely now. Like, is there any player from Limerick that's underrated? Maybe Mike Casey is underrated. He's got no all-star. He just goes about his business kind of quietly and effectively. Maybe he's underrated. Maybe a couple of years ago we might have said Nicky Quaid was underrated because people don't realise just how important he is to the whole machine. But I think that's long gone at this stage. Anyone popping out for you?
Well, I'm just wondering, is Peter Hogan underrated? You know, and we've kind of seen him play for Waterford at times, and then he goes out and he's had brilliant games for Waterford. So he is a really good inter-county player. But then the stuff that we see him doing for Ballygunner, I'd say, is it possible he's underrated? Is Sean O'Donoghue, and I know he's county captain, is he slightly underrated?
Well, I'd probably not talk about it. When you're talking about the marquee cornerbacks in the country, probably isn't in the conversation maybe as much. Maybe as much as he deserves to be. Like
Colin Malone, very good commentator.
Yeah.
I don't think you could say he's underrated by our game.
No, not by us anyway. Like it's gas when you look back at that Limerick Cork game. Like, Gillane probably tricked everybody that day, really. He won the penalty, didn't he? He plays hurl for one of the goals as well, but he's that good at it that you can't really see it in real time. And you don't really hear the noise.
Danny Sutcliffe's the same, very good at it.
Yeah, like that is an art form in itself. Some very good comments in. Travis Peter just has in underrated player, Eivor Quinnigan from Clare, dropped but indispensable after come back in, ended up getting an All-Star nomination, pulled off a couple of outrageous saves, brilliant saves. Like, that's a very, very good one, I would say. Quinnigan, like, it looked like Eamon Foodie was going to be the goalkeeper for 2023. Quinnigan comes in and has the best season of his career. So he'd definitely be right up there in that conversation.
Do you know, I do want to jump across. Well, I suppose, yeah, Mikey Breen is mentioned here by River Power. He can play in every line of the field. Is he underrated? He's had a good year. I also just wanted to mention Damien Cahalan. We're kind of jumping over to most improved player, maybe, and he was a big focus at the start of the show. But I thought he's looked really solid for Cork in the last while. And I don't know, maybe Pat Ryan has given him extra responsibility or just put more confidence in him or whatever. But I thought, given that he's been maligned at times over the years, and I always thought, like, one of the harshest things ever done was he was taken off, I think, 30 seconds before half-time against Kerry, maybe 2013 in the Munster Football Championship. And I always just thought, why take a player off, like, deep into injury time at the end of a half? You're just... So, like, he's just a player that I think has been hit with plenty of arrows over the years. And he's had a good season and huge reward with what happened yesterday. So I think he's worth mentioning in the most improved.
I tell you, he wouldn't thank you for it. I wouldn't thank you for it either if you put me in the most improved category.
Yeah, but you know, it's almost like finding a category to acknowledge the fact that his season, you know, like the outcome of his seasons, you know, it's kind of kicked on a little bit, and you know, I suppose that's probably the best category to fit him in. But I certainly don't mean it as any sort of a slight, just more it's a reward for where he's coming from.
I'd say
David Reedy Limerick in terms of like
started his first All-Ireland final, obviously, and he got nominated for an All-Star. Actually, it probably definitely his best year in a Limerick shirt. I think I would go with Tom Phelan for most improved because, like, he was causing Dermot Burns trouble in the All-Ireland final. He ended up with 3 points. Was hooked for a goal. Might have been involved in another goal chance as well. Was unbelievably effective. Had his best game, what might have been his best game ever in the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, is there anyone else from maybe the likes of Clare? I wouldn't say Mark Rogers has improved. It's just maybe we've seen a bit more of him this year because, you know, he's clearly...
No, he's not most improved now. I think well flagged how good he was. It was just
not improved, I suppose. And,
yeah.
But is he in some way underrated coming into this past season?
Anyone that was watching the 𝘧𝘳𝘁 and that with UL, I'd say wouldn't think so. And I think anyone in Clare wouldn't have been underrating him. So I don't think so.
Okay, got to respect Reedy's journey and sticking it out to where he is. Young players need to look at his persistence as river power. Shane Harrington, Decky Dalton made a big impact to the Cork forward line this year. I suppose he'd been in and around for the last number of years. And wasn't he dropped off the panel even the previous year?
Yeah, here's a good one for you. Name the 4 Limerick players that have 6 Munster hurling titles.
So Declan Hannon, Diarmaid Burns. Huh?
No.
Wait, no.
6 Munster titles. So when was their last one before 19?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't thinking of it that way. So Nicky Quaid, Declan Hannon, God, who else? Who's Graham Mulcahy?
Yep.
And God, who's slightly is Cian Lynch? Well, no, he made his first appearance in 2015, so he would have missed out on that. Am I right in saying?
Yeah. He got man of the match against Tip, didn't he? First out in 15.
Dan Morrissey.
No.
Okay, well, look, I've used up my lives there.
Yeah, Fergus Butler, and maybe he got it because we were just talking about it. It's Quaid, Hannon, Reedy, and Mulcahy. David Reedy's been around a hell of a long time. And
I managed to go to Kildare in between.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And he won the Christy Ring Cup there, did he?
He won the Christy Ring under Joe Quaid, yeah.
Yeah. That is quite the journey that he's had. Is there any other player viewers out there that we haven't mentioned for the underrated player of the year? We might talk about the heartbreak of the year. I think there can only be one here. I mean, when I'm talking about club level anyway, Loughlean Gaels getting to the Westmeath final and it taking a late Cillian Doyle goal blasted into the net to deny them. I think that was serious heartbreak.
That was an absolute killer, yeah. Like, when you're robbed at the death like that and you've been waiting a good while to try and get your hands on county title honours, that's an absolute killer. Just thinking of Galway at the end of the Leinster final as well. We talk about Killian Buckley's goal or whatever from a Kilkenny side, but like that was absolute desolation for Galway. You would have said that for Sheffield in 2023.
Do they care about Leinster though?
Yes.
Do they? I mean,
yes.
None of them grew up. Okay, actually, maybe some of them did at this point because Galway were in Leinster since 2009. But do you grow up dreaming of a Leinster title?
They care about winning trophies, and Sheffield needed a trophy at the end of 2023. And I'm not talking about a Walsh Cup or something. I'm talking about something actually tangible. And to lose it in the manner that they did was an absolute sickener. You only had to look at them in the pitch after.
Did it hurt them more that they weren't directly into an All-Ireland semi-final, or that they didn't win?
Oh, bit of that as well. It also hurt. I'm sure it hurt morale and confidence going into playing Limerick in All-Ireland semi-final and wondering whether they could actually go toe-to-toe with them down the stretch. Liam McHugh was a great comment in, and I think that's maybe most underrated or most improved, one or either or. But Kevin Cooney ended up with an All-Star nomination and was outstanding. Even brilliant against Tip that night. He was good against Limerick as well, and even throughout the club campaign with Sarsfield was outstanding the whole way through too.
Yeah, I actually meant to mention Brian Roach. Adrian McGrath has, so thanks for putting that comment in. Roach from Cork, most improved player. Like, I suppose just a player that came a bit of a bolt out of the blue, really, for us. You know, we'd heard of him and maybe his brother. Is it twin brother, actually? Owen Roach.
Yeah, Owen, yeah.
Yeah. So, heartbreak of the year, are you going to stick your colours to the mast with Galway there? I mean, that can't compare with Loughlean Gaels losing the county final.
There must be a few more as well. I can't think of the football one that comes to mind.
Offaly losing their preliminary All-Ireland quarter final.
Heartbreak. Jeez, you'd have no heart. You'd have no heart by the end of that. I'll go with Loughlean Gaels, same as you as well. I hadn't thought of that one before we started, but that was like they hit the butt of the post with a free as well at the very, very end to win it. I think they needed a free or they went for a goal after. That was an absolute killer.
Yeah, they hadn't won a title for over 20 years, 2002. So imagine the celebrations if they had to win that. But alas, so be it. We'll move on to the next section, which is, I'll just bring that up on the screen again. Flop of the year. So take your pick between Wexford, I should say, and Waterford.
Yeah, I would have said the big three in Clare hurling over the last decade as well. Ballyea, 6 Mile Bridge, and even Cratloe and Ina Kilnamony could probably throw into it as well. Just that they all ended up down in the B Championship wouldn't have been seen beforehand, but would probably be Waterford realistically when you look at the talent that they have in an All-Ireland final in 20. All-Ireland semi-final in 21, league champions in 22, and you're just thinking, like, they have a lot of talent. There's no point in saying any different. They definitely do. They delivered a very good performance against Limerick. Maybe the championship would have been a lot different had they got a result in that game. They didn't. Very poor against Cork, very poor against Clare, and the annoying thing is that maybe we saw how good they can be when they play a certain way against Tipperary, but it was far too little and far too late.
I'd say Wexford are right up there. Like, really not particularly good against Galway the first day out. Second day out, then they narrowly beat Antrim by 4 points. Whether they should or shouldn't, they'd be expecting to win that game by a little bit more. Lost to Dublin then at Croke Park, when all the talk was, are Dublin making a mistake going to Croke Park? Then they go out, get beaten by Westmeath with, falling off the face of the cliff in terms of the being so far ahead and losing. Yeah, to be honest, they had that brilliant performance against Kilkenny the last day out, but, I'd be plumbing for them. And I'd also be saying, look, to be fair, Tipperary started the championship quite well. We're okay for a lot of the league. But, those last two performances against the teams that, awfully, with all due respect, weren't challenging. But, like, those two performances against Waterford and Galway, they're a flop. Within an okay season, those two games were a massive flop.
Massive, yeah. 𝘧𝘳𝘰𝘮 comes in with a good one there. Barcelona would have to be flop of the year for me.
Jesus Christ. Right, I'm getting boot after boot.
Funny, I did mention it. I know Borough were beaten in this game, but the Borough-Shinrone quarter-final that went extra time in Offaly was, it's when you have skin in the game and it's that tight, that was a fair old game too. I find it hard to look past Waterford now for flop of the year, just because, like on two hands, if you're talking Austin Gleeson, Jamie Barron, Conor Prunty, Caleb Lyons, Desi Hutchinson, Patrick Fitzgerald, Peter Hogan, Kevin Mahoney, you know what I mean? If you're looking at what they have on paper, you're just thinking that they're not delivering on what they have. Hopefully that'll change going into 2024.
Yeah, for sure. Surprise of the year?
I'll give you a couple of suggestions and then I'll give you my answer. Nafina winning Dublin without Donald Burke would have to be considered a massive surprise.
So you're going to use my own suggestion against me? Well,
we're a team. We're a team, and you're not supposed to say it then when I take your suggestion. You're just supposed to be like, you're supposed to be humble and show humility.
The way you presented it as if I was just thinking about it there earlier, and no, you weren't. I suggested it to you.
I go straight to what the surprise of the year was, and they were 17 points down at the time, and for Westmeath to beat Wexford in that game, that was the most surreal thing I've ever been part of. It was absolutely unbelievable. You had the top four pairs written on the piece that say a half time and ready to push the button on full time, and then Niall Mitchell comes in, absolutely rips up the script. That was just bizarre, and it was so surreal because there was only about 200-300 Westmeath people there, if even, and the din and the noise that was coming from them. And then, do you know when you can actually hear shock?
Yeah,
like you could hear like the Wexford support, you could just hear the shock. That sounds mad to say it, but there was just people just absolutely going around. Like, there was corpses going around Wexford Park that day. Wexford people. Remember chatting Tom Dempsey after, and I never just seen, you look in someone's eyes and just see like a desolation in their eyes. It was unbelievable. And for them to turn it around in the week after was kind of class in a way as well. It just shows you how quickly the wheel can turn. And the flip of it, Westmeath a week later ended up getting relegated, which is like the greatest day to one of their worst days, you'd probably say. But on that day in Wexford Park, that was one of the most surprising and shocking things I've ever seen.
To me, the surprise of the year would be just the way that Waterford set up. I mean, there are other examples that we can pick, of course, like there's loads of more conventional things that we could talk about, but playing Desi Hutchinson out around the middle sector of the field, when we see what he can do close to goals, and, did close to goals against Limerick, and, big games, obviously, for Ballygunner, to, see him out around the middle field and see Darragh Lyons back in the full back line marking Tony Kelly, and when they take their own puck outs, all their own players are outside the 45 when they're running out from the back and all that. And I know there's obviously thought put into it and all that kind of stuff, but I just found it really surprising that when the stuff that they're good at, that we're not like, do you not take what's working and try and continue that and then find a few other things to add into it? But it just kind of, had that bit of script ripped up sort of a feeling to it. So I found that a little bit surprising and a little bit disappointing. Obviously, they went on to beat Tipperary later down the line, so they're not a total busted flush or anything like that, and can have a very good season next year. And obviously, Davy Fitz will get that extra chance to sort of work with them. So maybe they'll really come again next year. But I thought that was a little bit of a surprise, I have to be honest. Michael's having a little bit of trouble with his connection there, but you're back on for us. Any surprise of the year?
I'll go on a similar vein to you, because sometimes with surprise we're kind of I have my Westmeath one nailed to the mast anyway. But the fact that Clare set up with a sweeper against Kilkenny in All-Ireland semi-final, I couldn't believe it really, because it's not something we'd really seen before. Like barring like when they were really in trouble against Galway maybe in 2018 under completely different management. I just hadn't really seen a Brian Lohan team play that way. And it was only when they went orthodox that they made strides at nearly winning the game.
Surprise of the year, Thurles not strolling to the Munster final, says Adrian McGrath, taking the make out of me. Waterford can't be a flop compared to Tip, as no one expected much from them after last year. I'd also say Clonlara, having been senior B champions in Clare the year before, getting all the way to a Munster final, you'd have to say in a positive sense, that's surprise of the year. And Portaferry putting it up the way they did to now Ulster champions Cushendall, they certainly deserve a mention.
Definitely, without a doubt. We fly on to the next one, moment of the year. There's a couple of bits and pieces now I liked, and maybe it's because it was front and centre in like the first week in August, second week in August. Crotto O'Neill's winning the Kerry Championship. I just loved everything about that. Hadn't won in a hell of a long time. Jordan Conway kind of picked them up and hauled them over the line. That was definitely one at club level. Like
I think Killian Buckley getting that goal against Galway has to be mentioned there.
I think that's it. Like
he's had his injury struggles. You're not getting as much game time as you want to do that. I think that's got to be up there.
It's right or over stuff. Like he's been predominantly been a wing back or a midfielder throughout his career. He probably, let's call a spade, and he might admit this himself. I think he might have after. Like if everybody could have, it's like Donald Donovan in 2013. If the ball could have fallen to someone, he's probably not top of the list that they would have liked it to fall to. And even just he did a real emotional interview after, because he's had a lot of injuries, as you say. We have to work it into a category as well. I don't know, is it controversy of the year, mystery of the year, scandal of the year? But Killian Buckley's wedding been fixed for the day before the All-Ireland final has to be right up there. Has to be right up there as well. I'd
say that's a topic that can't be discussed down in Dixborough these days.
I'd say so somehow, yeah. But that was a mad one now. Like, and boys that were playing with Kilkenny the next day been part of his top table. He came on an All-Ireland final the next day. Isn't that bonkers?
It really is. How much do you get to enjoy it? And then do you go back and commiserate with your team, or go back and have day two of the wedding?
Yeah,
It's that's just not something you consider, when you're preparing for your wedding. Controversy of the year.
Controversy or controversy?
Tomato. To me, it's just the controversy of the year is something we touched on earlier in the show. It's just the rugby tackles, and becoming so common in both codes. Last few minutes of a game, if there's like more than a point in it, teams are insured. Grand, you can score a point or whatever. But if you're in any way trying to run up through the centre of us and you're within 60 yards of goal, come here, drag him down to the floor. Like if your defence looks anyway exposed and you know that there could be an opening, or the opposition team senses that we should try and find a way to manufacture a goal situation, I'm thinking, and I'm not criticising any of the players, as always, I'm just saying the rules leave it there as a way to, foul and be cynical and get rewarded. Jordan Malloy against Bennett's Bridge, Darren Mason against Dixborough, Joe Gallagher for Kildangan against Thurles. Every single game that's anyway close, heading into the last few minutes. Even Barry Coughlin against Sarsfields when they were battering the life out of them in the Munster quarter-final. For me, it's the controversy of the year that this has not been talked about, and the discussion of bringing in a penalty, no matter where it happens on the pitch, that to me is the controversy of the year.
To me, even the Barry Coughlin one, when they're winning the game by 15 or 20 points, it's nearly worse at that stage of a game. You know what I mean? It makes it even more farcical that you can get away with it. The Shelminator comes in with which was definitely a massive controversy. One of the most talked about things was GA goal. It was just so hotly debated, ended up in the Oireachtas, ended up in talked about, did it in the Dáil also as well. You had Micheál Martin talking about it, Alan Dillon talking about it. It's still been talked about now, even when they released their schedule last week. So that's definitely that was definitely on the lips of most people. But I'd be the same as you. I'd actually agree with you for once. I think the rugby tackle in hurling, and the fact that it's actually encouraged to do that at the minute, particularly at club level, like that's just going to have to change in time. It's going to have to change, not in time. It's going to have to change quick, because we're only going to see more of it, and the more people see of it, and coaches and managers see the best teams doing it, lower down the grades are going to start doing it, and it's going to become more and more of a blight on the game.
Yeah, �々𝘶𝘀 says, diving lads, it needs to be highlighted and driven out. Yeah, and to be fair now, we did compliment a couple of referees lately on not buying the simulation. But I think also if a referee feels that a guy tried to simulate there, instantly give a free against them and instantly give them a yellow card, because it has to be hammered out of the game. It's a physical game, like you. And also, do you know this? I think advantages need to be, the advantage rule needs to be tweaked a little bit. If you go through a tackle, let's say I'm trying to run past you and you do a bit of incidental contact where your arm kind of goes around and impedes me, and it's enough for, like, if it ensured that I ran into traffic and couldn't get away, it should be blown as a free. But if I'm trying to go past you and you start to put your hurley a little bit higher or whatever, it's not dangerous, but it's a free and all that kind of stuff. But I get 5 yards away from you and I have an uncontested shot at goal or point and I hit it wide, the advantage is over, because I've still gotten myself clear of you, and I'm, like, that is the advantage, that you're now back into a scoring position. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, remember, was it last year, or maybe it was last year actually, 2022, the time that, or was it against Naas? Owen Cody was fouled around 20 yards out. He stopped up, and the opposition stopped up, and then he just turned and blasted into the back of the net from the 21 or something like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. From Crow Park into the canal end, yeah.
Yeah, was that against Wexford or was that against Naas?
Naas, I think, is the one that rings a bell to me, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, just this whole point that the advantage should be, okay, we'll let it go. Can you get yourself back clean and clear and you're back on the front foot? Grand, okay, keep playing. Otherwise, the free has to be instant, because too often we're seeing somebody, they go on, take a shot, and then it's back for the free. And I just think it's too much.
And there was another good controversy that SSRI has thrown up here. He just said 10 minutes late throw-in for Wexford v Kilkenny, controversial. This was gas now and definitely didn't get talked about enough. So all the games had to start at the same time and finish in or around the same time in the Leinster Championship for the integrity of the competition. But the traffic, apparently, in inverted commas, was very bad going into Wexford Park that day. And there was a 10-minute delay. So Wexford knew their fate before the final whistle, and before the final whistle, which I don't know, was there skullduggery at play or what, but I suggest there might have been.
Yeah, well, look, I think it needs to be talked about more and more and more, the application of the advantage, the amount of players that are trying to simulate, and just the rugby tackle thing. Adrian McGrath says, sweeper versus Kilkenny, we were annihilated in the first half. We were in complete control this year until the brain farts. Foodie was in good form. He just showed that he may not have the nerve. But anyway, yeah, like if we're going to criticise with the way Waterford set up, we would have to criticise Brian Lohan and the way that he put out, a very good player in 𝘱𝘂𝘃, but throwing him in there as the sweeper when maybe John Conlon just made far more sense, and let a very speedy player in 𝘱𝘂𝘃 try and, tag somebody.
Yeah, but what Adrian says there, we were annihilated in the first half of 22, that's grand. We were in complete control before the brain fart, grand, but you were in complete control because you went back 15 on 15. You were not in complete control when you played the sweeper. I think Kilkenny had a 5-point advantage at half time until he made the change, and you were the much.
But to me, like, they could have been in a good position if they had to pick the right person for the sweeper and the right person for the markers.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. I think that's we both kind of agreed on the controversy. Adrian has kind of teed up what I think is the biggest mystery of the year anyway. Basically, how did Tony Kelly not get a free at the end of the Munster final? That was bizarre. I'd say there's people still wondering. Like, it was a very that was a brilliant game, but it was a very surreal finish to it, because I think, I don't know, most people, maybe apart from the Limerick players and some Limerick supporters, were fairly sure that it was a free at the end of the game and that Clare had a chance to level the game. But that's obviously not how it transpired. It certainly looked like a free in real time. Maybe the fact that Tony, in inverted commas, bought a free at the end of the Cork game, maybe that came home to roost at the end of the Munster final. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, that comment is coming in for 𝘂𝘶𝘀𝘃. Kelly didn't get the free at the end of the Munster final because he dived in a previous match against Cork. But yeah, it absolutely was a free, so that one was a bit of a mystery. And I suppose we should also look at one we've just skipped over, comeback player of the year.
Just 1 second, Shano, just quickly for the mystery of the year as well. Like, I don't think, like, whether Nicky Quaid wears glasses or whether he doesn't, or whether he's a problem with his contact lenses or not, has ever gotten, like, that sort of thing got massive airtime this year, like, huge airtime. He obviously went down. What game did he go down in Munster? He went down in the game.
All
Was it the Munster final? No, I don't think it was all of them. Was it the Munster final he went down in?
It's honestly, it's hard to remember.
He went down against
it's
Galway.
Very frequent.
He went down against Galway. He did get a slap in the chest against Galway, and he went down, and all of a sudden, but he did get a slap in the chest. I'm only saying that he definitely did.
People get slapped in hurling games constantly.
And do they go down?
I'd say, relative to the amount of times people get slapped with a hurley, which is almost constantly, I'd say very few people go down over.
Goalkeeper wouldn't be used to it, to be fair. So it was a bit of a ball from the blue.
Look, I'm not taking it out on him. It's a tactic, and it needs focus. You know, it's not personal.
That was definitely one that received a hell of a lot of focus, because with it in the minutes after he went down, Limerick looked a completely different team, like tactically, and they had solved Galway out basically in the minutes that the few minutes that followed after. What was the other one, Shano? What was this? Something to do with player of the year there? The other category we hadn't talked about?
Comeback player of the year. Trump says Owen Murphy comically went down the Leinster final, also, to be fair to Nicky Quaid. And look, we're not trying to be unfair or just, pick him out only. This is happening across the board. It's the most high profile, so we might as well mention it.
Yeah, Adrian McGrath says, it's obvious why we didn't get a free. The ref lost his way at the end and had sparked a Limerick pitch invasion already. His mind was gone and he just wanted to get off the pitch. Yeah, but there might be maybe some merit to that. Comeback player of the year. So,
hey, do you know what? Conor Cleary doing his shoulder and coming back for the All-Ireland semi-final. That's a fair comeback.
That's a fair comeback. Havard. So that was a fair comeback. But David Burke coming back from a cruciate to get back for Thomas's takes the biscuit.
Yeah, what was it? Just over 5 months
from operation.
From the operation.
April, I think, was it? It was 6 and a bit, I think. 6 and a bit. But like to come on in a county semi-final, then come on in a county final, like outrageous. He should be in great shape for this weekend as well, which we'll chat about on Thursday when they're going to. They're obviously trying to take down the Ballygunner machine at the weekend, but that was an unbelievable return. And funny enough, like he'd actually been open enough about the fact that he said he was hoping to get back at that time. Like I was looking at someone like mid to early 30s, or what, early to mid 30s. You're thinking there's no way he can get back at this time, but he fairly got back all right.
And I'm trying to think, is there anyone else that really came back hard this year? We probably want people to give us some comments from across the board and let us know who's really, really impressed this year after being, I suppose, quiet last year, or did somebody do a cruciate and made a big comeback? Yeah, we might end up revisiting that. I suppose, yeah, look, PWL74, Keane Lynch comeback, he's Limerick to the All-Ireland final win. PWL also says Tony has a rep for diving, that's why he didn't get the free. Okay, let's move on to the next category. Mystery of the year, you touched on that already. Most improved player, we've kind of already done that. Manager of the year. Who is the manager of the year?
Someone that came to mind for me would have been Donal Madden from Clonlara, and because of maybe what you mentioned earlier, that I think they'd won the last 3 Clare Senior Bs. That's not to say they're competing at B level, they're competing at A level, didn't make the knockout stages and went back into the B. But he's definitely someone that stands out. And I just love the fact that, like, he referenced after that county final, he was the one that gave the ball away at the end of the 2009 final, and it ended up in a goal, and Cracklow won, and Clonlara didn't do 2 in a row and have been waiting for a title ever since. So he'd be high up there outside of the obvious John Kiely, who won League, Munster and All-Ireland this year. And to be fair to Derek Ling, coming in to Kilkenny after, an 11-time All-Ireland winner manager, they were fairly well, substantially beaten in a league final, bounced back, won a Leinster final, completed Leinster 4 in a row, got to an All-Ireland final, albeit, really struggled in the last 20 minutes, had himself in a good position early, but really struggled in the last 20 minutes. Like, all in all, it wasn't a bad first year, you'd probably say.
You'd have to give some props to Tom Mullally as well, taking Carlow to the Joe McDonagh Cup, which means promotion to the Leinster Championship for 2024. They also gave a good performance against Dublin in the preliminary quarter-final. They lost that game by 10 points ultimately, but they'd competed rather well. and then he took Naas to another championship title as well. Also, they got to the semi-final, and fair enough, they lost to Nafina, but it was only by 3 points. So, like, that's not a bad innings for him.
No, that's listen, we've kind of waxed lyrical about Tom. Like, any team Tom takes, he generally gets the best out of them, whatever that is. If it's like Naas were very close to getting to an Ulster final this year. As I said, we pushed Nafina very, very close. Someone mentioned there a really good comment as well about Shane Harrington. Excuse me, Shane Harrington just said, surely a comeback is a player who regained form or is placed, not an injury. Like, one player I mentioned it after the All Ireland final this year, like, Paddy Deegan had a very, very tough All-Ireland final in 2022. Like, seriously tough. He had a brilliant All-Ireland final this year. I think he scored 1-2, didn't he? And then he goes on and does, probably maybe on the back of that, with confidence fully restored, goes on and is probably the driving force for Loughlin. So he definitely deserves a mention as well. And just someone, manager of the year there, Richard Hogan, says as well, Noel Doherty of Thomastown, given all the baggage they had coming in over the last few years and really getting the job done. Yeah, and getting the job done in emphatic style. Noel actually came up with the hamstring solo machine that a lot of professional sports teams use, like even a lot of NFL teams. I think Liverpool use it. The picture of Mo Salah with it, the Dubs use it. So I'm presuming that none of the Thomastown boys are showing up any injuries or anything these days, but he definitely deserves a mention as well.
Yeah, P.Well, Hoggy had a comeback year, from being dropped, I suppose, the year before. And he'd maybe already proven the point when he came on in that game and did quite well, but he really kind of laid down a marker again this year. Fergus Butler said, the Waterford selecting Dunton Hegarty and little being said about it. I suppose you're going with controversy of the year there, are you, Fergus?
Yeah, there's a couple of bits in that. Funny enough, there was very few sending offs this year. That was one of them. That was one of like 5 or 6, I think, sending offs in championship this year. Dropped dramatically compared to other years. That was mad. That was a mad scenario. That just shows you why, like, sometimes if you were on the sideline, you'd be nearly ticked that certain personnel aren't allowed down there. That's why a lot of people aren't allowed down their sidelines, because that sort of shenanigans ends up going on.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten involved in shenanigans as somebody involved on the sideline? Like, for example, I remember, and you can't help it. Like, I was one of the sort of lads, Mayor Furna or Mayor Ishka, one year, and I think, you're doing a bit of jawing in, mostly because you're trying to encourage your own players. But you might have previous with something like, and this was a time being injured, you might have a bit of previous with some of the lads that you're competing with on the field. And one day, all right, one lad kicked a slitter at me. Now, missed or whatever, but I wasn't too pleased with it. Nothing more happened. But I'm just saying, let's say that slitter had to connect, in the face or whatever. Like, anything could happen thereafter, couldn't it?
Yeah, possible improvement to your face, let's say. I remember doing umpire one time for Barry Kelly. He used to teach in our school, and I did Leinster College's B semi-final, and there was a goal scored, and I never even looked to see whether it was a square ball. It never entered my head. And like, I still don't think it was, but one of the Rathdowney lads that was playing, I think they were playing Ballot at the time, he said he come in and said he break my neck, which was an interesting one.
Seemed a bit extreme. Okay,
small bit, a tad.
So manager year though, it probably still has to be John Kiely, just because the 4 in a row.
Yeah, John,
and 5 in a row in Munster.
Very hard to look past him. And like I've said it before, and I'd say it again, how he's managed turbulence off the pitch is it's an unbelievable credit to his role as a manager. Like, there's all the trappings that comes with success, and he's managed it beautifully, you'd have to say. They've managed to keep the train firmly on track, and it's firmly on track going into 2024 as well.
Actually, I just want to give a mention to Darragh O'Sullivan for manager of the year also. What they continue to do. I mean, he's got great players, don't get me wrong, but like, they keep that show on the road. They've been on the run for so many years, and they've continued to keep it going. And I also wanted to mention, I don't know, is it a bit or sort of comes across the wrong way in some sense, but Kevin Mahoney is a most improved player. Like, we know he's a good player, but it's just what we've seen a little, from him lately. I kind of sense that there's, maybe he's going to make an impact at county soon. He's played, but maybe now he's going to start to make his mark.
Yeah, well, just on Darragh O'Sullivan, he's probably a bit unheralded in a way, like, because maybe people talk about David Franks or Sean O'Donnell or Tony O'Gregan or the quality of players that they have. But as I said, the same about Padua and Burr. You need somebody steering the ship, and you need someone steering the ship properly, and that is not an easy job. And the other thing I'd say about that as well is, when was the last time they played bad? Like, they generally, no matter who they're playing, they play to a really, really high level, and that's a fair credit to the manager in particular. And on Kevin Mahoney's a fair operator now, and he's after he's after improving a hell of a lot, as you said.
Back to your point though on Ballygunner, the last time that they didn't play a game on their terms, it was probably that game that they lost to Ballyhale Shamrocks at the start of the year. There was a time when I thought, okay, they're going to kick on now, and they just never did, because Ballyhale kept the game on their terms. So, I mean, if it's only against that team that you haven't really dominated the flow of a game, I think that speaks volumes of how good they have been overall. Scandal of the year?
Yeah, I'd only one thing here, because it stood out like a sore thumb. It was, basically the GA making a ruling that